Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to the devotees, all glories to the devotees, all glories to the devotees. This is.
Yeah, you just put it on your phone.
Doesn't matter which way, right? Doesn't matter. I'm entering the digital age. All new things for me. I'm like stuck in like the early 2000s, 2010s. But yeah, before the phones took over our lives.
On the early 2000s, I still around. Something was
Yeah, those are the best, right? Those are the. Oh, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes, texts 14 through 16. Okay, so Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Svavadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Vaita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha. Okay. So we have the verse up there, 2514. Dravyam karma chakalascha swabhavo jiva evacha Vasudevat paro brahman nachanyortis stitatvataha Dravyam karma chakalascha swabhavo jiva evacha Vasudevat paro brahman nachanyortis stitatvataha Dravyam karma chakalascham evacha Vasudeva paro brahman achanyotis tattvataha Dravyam karma chakalascha Jiva evacha
Brahman
Vasudeva Parabrahman
Nachanyorthosti Tattvataha
Nachanyosti. Okay. Dravyam, the ingredients earth, water, fire, air, and sky.
The ingredients earth, water, fire, and sky.
Karma, the interaction.
The interaction.
Cha, and Kalaha, eternal time. Cha, also. Svabhavaha, intuition or nature. Jivaha, the living being. Eva, certainly. Cha, and Vasudevat, from Vasudeva. Paraha, differentiated parts. Brahman, O Brahmana. Na, never. Cha, also. Anyaha, separate. Arthatha, value. Asti, there is. Tattvataha, in truth. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. The five elementary ingredients of creation, the interaction thereof set up by eternal time, and the intuition or nature of the individual living beings are all differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead, Vasudev, and in truth there is no value in them. So this, I was looking at the context of this verse, and the previous chapter is like Shukadev Goswami talking to Parikshit Maharaj, and he's talking about the glories of devotional service, and then it kind of abruptly, it's sort of like, Parikshit Maharaj is asking questions about the cosmic manifestation and stuff, and then from what I understand, it looks like then kind of suddenly he just says, well, one day Narada Muni asked his father Brahma these questions. Does that sound right? Does that sound kind of what? So he just, to start explaining, he's like, okay, well, let me tell you about the time Narada Muni asked Brahma about this. And then this is when we start to have this chapter 5 starts like this. And it's the conversation with Narada Muni talking to Brahma. And Brahma is, it makes sense. Brahma, sometimes he's called the creator God. Not only in the Vedic understanding, even in like Buddhism, if you look at that, Brahma is understood to be the creator God. Brahma creates it's not just, it's interesting when we're trying, Prabhupada, I think he was trying to establish like a spiritual science. So we know science is kind of an idea that it's not just like, oh, it just makes sense for me. That's not really a science. A science would be like, okay, this is science. This is like a real thing. It's not just like, oh, this is my culture, this is my custom. But Prabhupada, he was getting at like, well, let's have a spiritual science. So this idea of Brahma, it's not like, oh, this is just your tradition, your culture, you were born in it. But it's even Buddhism, which does not accept the Vedas, actually. Basically, Buddhism is not, it's not like accepting the Vedic idea as authority. They understand, well, Brahma, that's in their tradition. It's like, well, Brahma is the creator God, And then you can go, I won't go into all the details, but you can go into like, even in Scandinavian countries, they know their idea of Indra, it's the same thing, or Zeus, Zeus or Jupiter, it's clearly Indra, lightning bolt. It's not like just, oh, this is just what we believe, and they believe something else. It's like, they had the same idea. They just had a different name, Zeus, Indra. So, no, and I lost okay, so, so here, naturally, when Parikshit Maharaj is asking these questions, it makes a lot of sense for Shukadev Goswami to say, well, let me tell you, this question was asked to Brahma, and we all know that Brahma created the universe. So, let's go to this, let's refer to this dialogue because that's a known thing. And of course, then Brahma will go on to say, well, actually, I mean, I created, but really, you know what I mean? I'm like a secondary creator, actually. Like there's something beyond me. So this is the idea. You know, and this is the idea of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I believe, is it the first 7 cantos are focused on shelter, right? Does anyone know this? The idea, like there's different topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't have the exact, but yeah, you know this, right? Yeah, about creation, destruction, and then one of them, maybe the 3rd or 4th one in that verse, Poshanam, shelter, right? Krishna is Ashraya. What is Poshanam?
Poshanam is like
which one? Protection. Similar, right? Poshanam, Ashraya.
nourishment.
Yeah, nourishment. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is working up to this idea, right? Like here we're hearing, you are Visharga and
Survey is creation, the survey is secondary.
yeah, the primary and secondary creation. So it's starting like this. It's an interesting idea. It's kind of like a very, again, scientific. It's like, you know, it's like, it seems like a very scientific approach because it's not like, oh, this is my feeling, you know, about God, but it's kind of like our reality is the universe. That's the fact of it. You know what I mean? Like the actual shared, we have a collective, you know, and internally I have my own idea. Like Prabhupada would say, for example, you know, there's nationalism, right? I am an American, so I believe this. I am an Indian, I believe this. I am within Indians, I'm a Brahmin, I'm a Gujarat. You know, we have our own subjective, you know, and that's kind of like how I was born and the stories I was told in my neighborhood and yada, yada, yada. But then, okay, here's the universe, man, that we all share this. You know what I mean? We can't like, this is the same thing we're dealing with. You know, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It doesn't matter. You're American or whatever. Leave that aside. And now let's look. And so it's interesting that this is how it's, you know, the establishing our Siddhanta is starting with this. Well, this is the universe. This is how it works, you know. You know, we have that idea, Kanishta Adhikari, right? The Kanishta Adhikari, he comes to the temple and he's like, Hare Krishna, you know, he's like a saint, you know, he comes to the temple and he's worshiping Krishna, giving donations, da, 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 da. Then he goes out to the real world and he's just like, who knows? You know what I mean? We don't know. Sometimes the worst one from outside comes and then then he comes to the temple and he imagines, but then outside into the real universe, you know, cutthroat, ruthless guy, you know, God doesn't even exist. You know what I mean? And then the Madhyam, he starts to see different, oh, okay, this one is more advanced, this one is less advanced. And then the Uttama, they understand God is everywhere. It's not just in the temple, you know. It's not like you come to the temple, magically these new rules, you know, we have these special, you know, I'll be nice to everyone, and, you know, I'll serve. But then they become a Uttama and they realize God is within the heart of every living being. Krishna is always present. I can't get away with anything. I can't. He's watching. He's watching wherever I go. He's still there. But that's a beginning. That's so glorious, you know. Like sometimes it's like with a Kanishta Adhikari. Obviously, if someone is doing something really horrible, that's a different thing. And we have authorities, and you can go. You may, you know, like there was times when in temples, at one temple when Prabhupada was on, they actually started like serving meat. I don't know if you know this story, right? There was this one, I think it was in New York. And then later on, Prabhupada came and he was like, you should have told me, you know, you shouldn't just. So sometimes there's an extreme thing, but generally, even if devotees aren't perfect, you know, even if devotees, maybe there's some imperfection there, they're still trying, but still, you know, even as a Kanishta Adhikari, that's such a rare thing, you know, out of billions, and, you know, we have close to 10 billion people, humans, not what to speak of animal life forms. And out of that 10 billions and billions of people, there's this handful of people, maybe they're very imperfect, maybe they're struggling in their own ways, they have their own condition, but there's a small handful of people, they're at least trying something. They're at least trying something, and okay, maybe they make some mistakes. Obviously, if it's a huge mistake, we have to take care, but, you know, maybe it's not perfect, maybe there's some mistakes, but we can see, well, I mean, this is a rare soul, you know, we sometimes forget, you know. So.
One starts when two of them meet each other.
Yeah, right. Then it's, you know, so Yeah.
I'm sorry, I heard you say that. Is it beyond 9 billion now, close to 10? Because as far as I knew, it was before 7 billion.
You may be, I think it's something like that. Something like that. Yeah. I don't know the exact date. I just threw it, not it. Yeah. 7, 8, something. That's what I hear. Yeah. 7, 8. They say it's going to peak at 10. Anyways, I don't know. But yeah. So.
It's a big difference from 7 to 10, from 8 to 10. That's a drastic difference.
That is, yes. That is true. That's billions of people. Yeah. So, okay. So let's go start the purport. The phenomenal world is impersonally the representation of Vasudeva, because the ingredients of its creation, their interaction, and the enjoyer of the resultant action, the living being, are all produced by the external and internal energies of Lord Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:4-5. The ingredients, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, as well as the conception of material identity, intelligence, and the mind, are produced of the external energy of the Lord. The living entity who enjoys the interaction of the above gross and subtle ingredients, as set up by the eternal time, is an offshoot of internal potency with freedom to remain either in the material world or in the spiritual world. In the material world, the living entity is enticed by deluding nescience. But in the spiritual world, he is in the normal condition of spiritual existence without any delusion. The living entity is known as the marginal potency of the Lord, but in all circumstances, neither the material ingredients nor the spiritual parts and parcels are independent of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. For all things, whether products of the external, internal, or marginal potencies of the Lord, are simply displays of the same effulgence of the Lord, just as light, heat, and smoke are displays of fire. That's interesting. That's interesting. Everything is a display of the same of the Lord's effulgence. So Krishna is, it's kind of like there can be nothing outside of Krishna. And we know that there's a Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, which is kind of I like those. I like the shortcuts, So it's like Chaturshloki Bhagavatam is giving the whole Bhagavatam in 4 verses, the essence. And really, if you look, it's basically saying, there's really nothing outside. There can't be anything outside of Krishna. If you're seeing something and you're not seeing Krishna in that, that's illusion right there, right? That's illusion. You have some realization? Right? I'm thinking.
Because you have to see the connection of the energy with the energetic. If you see the energy independent of the energetic. So, like Prabhupada gave the example that if you see my glasses, then you say, oh, these are Prabhupada's glasses, right? So, in the same way, the pure devotee sees everything that, oh, this belongs to Krishna, this is Krishna's energy. But when we are in illusion, so we see I am the proprietor, it's for my enjoyment. It's for my enjoyment. But actually it belongs to Krishna, it's for Krishna's enjoyment. So that's the change in the consciousness, right? So
yeah. Any other thoughts on?
So all situations that happen in life, also they see as Krishna's arrangement in their lives to bring them closer to Krishna, or Krishna is purifying me, Krishna is detaching me. They see it like that. The pure devotee sees that everything is happening by the will of Krishna. So it's connection with Krishna they see in every situation. So,
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that? Anyone want to reflect? Yes.
I mean, and since this is the fact, you don't necessarily need to engage smoke because it's Krishna, because it's not going to be healthy for you. It's going to make you teary-eyed, make you sick maybe. But there's, in the right proportions, you can engage heat and it'll be beneficial to you. So it's not that you need to engage every energy because it's Krishna. Because the material nature is controlled by Krishna, but it's sending you further and further to the depths of its realm.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because somebody could, and Prabhupada actually talks about that in the purport to the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. He says, sometimes they can be like, oh, everything is Krishna, this is Krishna. So I can be like, I can go to, Alankar Prabhu and go into his wallet. I can say, this is Krishna's money, this is Krishna in here, it's Krishna's everywhere, and I can go and just take and say, here, let me take that. It's going from Krishna to Krishna, or like you've made a good point, the smoke is Krishna, right? Yours. So I can just be like, oh, let me take a cigarette. I mean, it's Krishna.
No,
right, but
you don't want to engage the smoke because it'll be unhealthy for you.
Right.
You're going to engage the heat because it's
Right.
beneficial.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you shouldn't. I think in a sense, what the idea is, you have to know what level of realization you have, right? Because when you're still wanting to get purified, you can't just be like cheating, because that's kind of like, oh, let me take his wallet, or let me smoke something, let me smoke a cigarette. I think it's Krishna. But like you're saying, we should use it in Krishna's service, serve Krishna, if I'm right. Is that what you say?
I mean, I don't know how you can use smoke in Krishna's service. As a matter of fact, they got you to smoke because Krishna swallowed the forest of fire.
Yeah.
And when there's fire, there's smoke. So they got you to smoke to pretend to be God.
Okay. Okay, but you were saying you should use the heat. You said you should.
Smoke is going to be beneficial for you, but heat will be beneficial.
Okay. Right.
I'm saying you don't need to engage every of Krishna's energies, because some of it may not be beneficial.
Right.
For instance, like an electric car. It might get you used to practicing driving an electric car, but that's another civilization, that's another species that uses non-fuel transportation. And you might be drawn to, flying in the air, levitating in another realm with another species, not human anymore.
Okay, right. So you're kind of like saying, like, yes, these things, they may be Krishna's energies, but we have to use our intelligence and make sure that we don't use them in a way that's harmful, unhealthy, leading us to an end.
Using these energies against you because you don't want to be close to him. You want these energies to make you feel comfortable, creature of habit. So he's using these energies. Sure, you want it, I'll give it to you. Go ahead, accept it.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So that's a good point, because in a sense, and it kind of goes back to that Chaturshloki, because we're not really seeing it as connected to Krishna when we misuse these things, right? If we misuse these things for our own gratification, we're really serving the ego. We're not really serving Krishna. We're, Krishna being, the most important, being the source of everything. If we try to smoke, or we try to use an electric car for our own benefit or whatever, are we really seeing Krishna, or are we actually just trying to be important, trying to replace Krishna, trying to hide Krishna? But instead, all these things we should use to reveal Krishna. And like Prabhupada would often say, he would say that thing like, there was some saint said, oh, if there's a pile of money, I'm going to go, no, I don't want it, And then Prabhupada said, if there's a pile of money, I'll say, here, give it all to me, and I'll hug it, because he will use it for Krishna's service. But yeah, like that, it's supposed to be connected to Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Yes, none of them is, speaking of fire, none of them is separate from the fire. All of them combine together to be called fire. Similarly, all phenomenal manifestations, as well as the effulgence of the body of Vasudeva, are his impersonal features, whereas he eternally exists in his transcendental form called Sajid Ananda Vigraha, distinct from all conceptions of the material ingredients mentioned above. Okay, next verse. 2.5.15. Narayana Paraveda
Narayana Paraveda
Deva Narayana Gajaha
Narayana
Narayana Paraloka Narayana Paramakaha. Translation. The Vedic literatures are made by and are meant for the Supreme Lord. The demigods are also meant for serving the Lord as parts of his body. The different planets are also meant for the sake of the Lord, and different sacrifices are performed just to please him. Purport. According to the Vedanta Sutra, Shastra Yonivata, the Supreme Lord is the author of all revealed scriptures, and all revealed scriptures are for knowing the Supreme Lord. Veda means knowledge that leads to the Lord. The Vedas are made just to revive the forgotten consciousness of the conditioned souls, and any literature not meant for reviving God consciousness is rejected at once by the Narayana para devotees. Yeah, so that's an interesting statement. So, yeah, it's a very strong statement. How do people feel about that? It's kind of like saying, like, anything that's not leading us to Krishna, we should reject that. Does anyone have any thoughts, realizations on this? Yeah, it's like, I mean, I know for me, I'm reading so many things that are not like directly related to Krishna, you know. So
Because the goal of life is to achieve Krishna.
yeah.
So all the other things might be considered as distractions. So that's why it should be rejected. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, Bhagavad Gita says, many branch versus single pointed focus. How that it basically is Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, anyway, we have like no short. Everything is short. Attention span is short. Or determination is weak. Or memory is not there. We are just so much of Prabhu was saying.
Sometimes they say if you know Krishna, you know everything.
Yeah.
So if you know Krishna, then you know how the material energy works. So one time they asked Srila Prabhupada, so you say like that, do you know how many windows are there in the Empire State Building?
Right.
And he said, there is no use knowing how many drops of water are there in the Mirage.
Right.
So material energy is ultimately it's an illusory energy of the Lord, and we can study it very much, very deeply. But until we see its connection with Krishna and how we use it, then it's useless.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and it's interesting. I mean, in one sense, someone could say that, oh, this is like kind of an extreme, you know, way of looking at things. But, you know, if you think about it in the sense, you know, all this material knowledge, it ends in death. You know, it's like we have a limited, it kind of reinforces an idea that, oh, we're here in the world and we can just figure it out, and it's all going to work out. It's all going to be, oh, thank you. It's all going to be, you know, we'll become comfortable, we'll be happy, but, you know, no one wants to die, you know. And then, you know, sometimes people will say, oh, it's okay, I'm going to die, it's not a big deal, you know, I'm not worried about it. I still remembered I asked this question when I was coming in the beginning. This devotee was talking about that, you know. So I was like, well, you know, someone might say, well, I just die, it's not a big deal. I mean, I'm just going to live, and then he goes, okay, here's a gun, I shoot you now. Is that okay? Are you okay with that? And that kind of shocked me. It kind of made me like, yeah, I guess no one really wants to die, you know. And then Prabhupada would talk about that in his books, especially introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, we're naturally by nature eternal. So as an eternal being, we naturally resist, you know, becoming extinct. That's the most worst thing we can imagine, is to become extinct. And he uses that as kind of as an argument to kind of prove one of the proofs of why we're actually eternal. So in that sense, yes, all this knowledge, so you can say mundane knowledge, it doesn't really help us. And then at the same time, I know for myself, I do read, different books, and I think part of that is my mind is a little bit restless. I'm bored, maybe. Sometimes I'm curious, But yeah, ultimately, it's like Parikshit Maharaj, when he knew 7 days, bas, that's it, finish. Okay. Then it just work open, go to the forest, listen to I'm just going to hear it like that. And yes.
Somebody was saying, I was at a phone program the other day, so I was saying Sunita Williams is in space now.
Oh, yeah.
And she's, the thing that was going to bring her back somehow failed. So
oh, no.
Stuck in space. These two astronauts are in space, right? Sunita Williams. And so they were saying that. So I was saying that, people go and create a situation which is very difficult for them. They go into the space and they say, no, but exploration of space that's like curiosity. We should do all this. Otherwise,
They convince themselves that they're still happy. This is all part of their plan.
Yeah, but they say, well, it's a dangerous thing to go up right there. So many, and something would go wrong, and then your life is. But they think that unless we do this, then how will we know what is in space and exploration? And so then this thing, they won't accept this kind of thing, that everything else is useless other than God consciousness. I was saying like that.
Yeah.
And they were saying, no, but this is the nature of human being, to explore and like this and to find out more things. And you said just, so they were saying that.
But where is their exploration? Everything is like known. There's Dhruva Loka, there's 2 Earths there, 1 sun, there's 21 billion people there, or Nagas, whatever you want to call them. There's Mars is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Where's their exploration? Everything is known. It's written. Chapter 2, Canto 2, Chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. What did they not read that chapter? What did they not explore?
Yeah.
But they want to go there personally and see.
Right.
Well, let them know they're not going to have a human body. They're going to have a different body.
Yeah, and it's they want to go explore, and it's I want to, hopefully I want to come circle back to this, but one thing I was thinking about reading different things. There's a very Jayadvaita Swami, very conservative, traditional, he's like everything, he's definitely, no one's going to look at Jayadvaita Swami and say what he's doing is not right. But I remember one time he was, he's going to have lunch. He's waiting for his lunch. And now this is recorded. So anyways, Hare Krishna. But this is, and he just pulled out a book. So Jayadvaita Swami, please, give me your blessings. But I thought it was interesting. He pulled out a book, and it was a book on, I think it was a book on like caterpillars or butterflies or something. I still remember. And I was a brahmachari, fanatic brahmachari. I was like really hardcore. And I was kind of like, interesting. And he just pulled out a book, and he was just sitting there, and he was just, he had his little book about butterflies, and he was just reading. So, in one sense, there is really this ideal, but then in one sense, we are humans, we are where we're at. And obviously, a book on butterflies is not like the most harmful thing imaginable. You might be waiting at a train station or something, or whatever. You might be having and I remember, I remember he was pretty, he was pretty wrapped into it. He was just learning about butterflies and like, oh, that's interesting and whatever,
That is interesting you say, because I think Prabhupada uses that as an example of transition. And he's about to have prasadam. He's trying to getting that idea of, okay, I'm a human, but I'm trying to transition to my spiritual body.
Okay.
I'm using it as Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
Because I remember Prabhupada using caterpillars and butterflies as an example for transition of our spiritual transition.
Okay, so Prabhu was saying, for the very interesting point. Subal Prabhu was saying that we could understand that possibly at some level, either consciously or subconscious or whatever, the idea of learning about butterflies and stuff can be dovetailed. It can be sort of something dovetailed about this idea of transitioning, because we know that caterpillars, they're caterpillars and then they turn into butterflies and they go through this, and it's kind of we can see that Subhal Prabhu is seeing Krishna in everything. Literally. He's literally seeing.
Because Prabhupada used that as an example, and Prabhupada sees every Krishna. So if I'm hearing Prabhupada and listening to him, then I can see Krishna.
By the mercy of Prabhupada, Subhal Prabhu, by the mercy of our Acharya, Subhal Prabhu is able to see that example and see the Krishna conscious connection. Thank you. That's very good. I never thought of that. I had to wait years and decades to finally get this, and that's a beautiful thing. So anyways, like Prabhu was saying, maybe we may be interested in certain things, but see that in a Krishna conscious way, right? See that in Krishna. Obviously, the highest thing in Upadeshamrita, it says, one should 24 hours a day, chant the names of Krishna and relish the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And we see the highest level is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. He was giving Prema Bhakti. What is the highest thing? And he stopped preaching at that point, right? He was at a stage of his life where, it's interesting when you look at people, different people have different aspirations, like what is the ideal? What do I want to be in life? And there's not many people walking in the world thinking, the highest thing I want to do is I want to be in a room crying for Krishna all day. Like that is just, I forget everything. I don't want to be important. I don't want to do this or that. But interestingly enough, in this sampradaya, in our line, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching, the highest thing is to just be in separation of Krishna and to cry, as he demonstrated for years and years and decades. And then even it said, some people, they thought that actually people were talking, they thought maybe he was having seizures or epilepsy even. They weren't sure what was going on, But then eventually those who were very spiritual and who were devotees, they saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and they were like, this is like the most amazing thing. It's like the highest level of a being can be this, So I bring that up, and it's something I think about because, in a sense, in ISKCON, there's so many levels. Because generally, you don't want to have some guy come in, new devotee, and be like, okay, this is what you want. We want to get you there like in 2 days or whatever. And next year, you should be here at this point, Rather, Prabhupada created ISKCON. He created this idea of understanding Varnashram Dharma, of understanding like where we really are at. Like what is who we are authentically, like what is really who we are. And in that way, trying to make advancement. There's those admonishments given by the acharyas. Don't imitate, if you imitate something artificially, it'll cause disturbance. So, any other points on that?
Yeah, I was thinking, ultimately, it's also about the consciousness, because I just recently had something to do with medical treatment, and I was appreciating that how doctors like there are no more stitches. You just do magically things are done and you are recovered. And I was just thinking that the same technology, same intelligence, it's given by Krishna, but it's misused. It's just used, without any purpose. But if there is no purpose, if there is no understanding of it, is this now what? Now my issues are fixed. Now what? What's next? If there is no goal, then what next will keep changing after some period of time. But if there is a goal, there is an understanding of, you mentioned about our original position. Then okay, now use everything to get me there. So always, we are not this body, that's the fact. We are the spiritual souls. But that doesn't mean that, okay, no, reject this body, right? Material knowledge is not encouraged, not going to take us back to God, but it can still be used to take us to the final direction.
Yeah, I really love that point. It's kind of, we often say that, Krishna is the one before the zeros, right? You can have so many zeros, and there are whatever technology, science, so many amazing things, but Krishna is the one. And it's, I think it's a really interesting point. You know, you might have heard, you know, Nietzsche. You ever heard of that philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche? He's the one. You ever heard of that saying? You know, he said, "God is dead." You know, right? You know.
Prabhupada discusses Nietzsche in his book Beyond Doubt, and Nietzsche was addressing Superman, and Prabhupada said that the Guru is Superman because the Guru leaves himself up to Krishna's guidance, and therefore he is not concerned about anything around the world. But I'm sorry, Prabhu, because you talked about the point that Nietzsche made about God is dead, but he did also.
He mentioned, thank you. So you can see that Prabhupada. So I'm not trying to. Nietzsche would be considered one of the, I don't know, maybe 3-4 quote unquote greats of Western philosophy. No, that's different. I forgot who that was. But anyways, I forgot who that one, but maybe that was Kierkegaard. I don't know. Anyways, but Nietzsche, you know, you could say Kant and Hegel and Nietzsche, these are the, so sorry, I don't know, maybe this reference isn't so powerful at this point, but so I guess no one's heard that saying, you know, he basically said God is dead, but no one's heard that, I guess. You've heard it, yeah. Anyways, the interesting thing, the reason I bring this up is some people say that, well, look at Nietzsche, what a rascal, what an atheist. He's, you know, it's a horrible thing. People don't realize, and he was an atheist, actually. He was an atheist, and he died in a mental hospital. You know, he was committed when he was 45, and he died when he was 55. It didn't end well for Nietzsche, but he was in the late 1800s. What Nietzsche was doing was, he was dealing with the fact that European society, especially the elites, they had discovered science. And then for them, they didn't need religion anymore, they felt. They're like, you know, before we got sick or whatever, and you go to the church, you pray to God, you know, and God explains. And now we have science, you know, and we've developed industrialization and, you know, yada, yada, yada. And they were just like, okay, you know, who needs religion? Who needs God? This and that. And what Nietzsche was saying was, and this is going to be to your point, he said, they don't realize that there will be a sense of lack of meaning and purpose in life now. Like, they don't realize they're actually he actually said they're heading toward nihilism. Like, life will soon become meaningless for these people. They can have all the comforts and all the technology and yada, yada, yada. But, and then so when he said God is dead, he was saying it with like anguish. He was like, for them, basically, God is now dead for them. So people don't realize, right? You've heard this, and it sounds like Nietzsche is like, oh, God is dead. This is a great thing. He was saying this was a disaster.
I didn't understand that part.
I didn't either. We've heard this many times. Like sometimes someone would write God is dead, and they'll say Nietzsche. And then someone who loves God and stuff, they'll say Nietzsche is dead. God, signed God.
That's what they wrote on his tombstone.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, but Nietzsche was actually, he was realizing what you're saying. The thing is with him, he didn't have the realization. So and that's what a lot of Western philosophy is all about. Like, speaking of, you know, reading things that are not, you know, oh, time is up.
So
okay.
You say that life is meaningless because he didn't believe in God, right? So what
that's the thing. That's that's the whole crux of what is Western, the grappling of Western philosophy. I'll end in this point, but 15 minutes. Okay. All right. The Bhagavata devotees are requesting. So I will, seeking the permission at their feet, we will continue for 15 minutes. And we have to finish the verse. Okay. I'll just say this and we'll move on. Good point. So you might have heard of that movie, Life of Pi. Life of Pi. No. Okay. So we won't do that reference then, never mind. But we'll go on and
You're on the third sentence or something, such deluding books of knowledge.
Okay, yes. Such deluding books of knowledge, not having Narayana as their aim, are not at all knowledge, but are the playgrounds for crows who are interested in the rejected refuse of the world. Any book of knowledge, science or art, must lead to the knowledge of Narayana. Otherwise, it must be rejected. That is the way of advancement of knowledge. The supreme worshipful deity is Narayana. The demigods are recommended secondarily for worship in relation to Narayana, because the demigods are assisting hands in the management of the universal affairs. As the officers of a kingdom are respected due to their relation to the king, the demigods are worshipped due to their relation to the Lord. Without the Lord's relation, worship of the demigods is unauthorized of Vidipurvakam, just as it is improper to water the leaves and branches of a tree without watering its root. Therefore, the demigods are also dependent on Narayana. The lokas, or different planets, are attractive because they have different varieties of life and bliss, partially representing the Sachit Ananda Vigraha. Everyone wants the eternal life of bliss and knowledge. In the material world, such an eternal life of bliss and knowledge is progressively realized in the upper planets, but after reaching there, one is inclined to achieve further progress along the path back to Godhead. Duration of life with a proportionate quantity of bliss and knowledge may be increased from one planet to another. One can increase the duration of life to thousands and hundreds of thousands of years in different planets, but nowhere is there eternal life. But one who can reach the highest planet, that of Brahma, can aspire to reach the planets in the spiritual sky, where life is eternal. Therefore, the progressive journey from one planet to another culminates in reaching the supreme planet of the Lord, Madhama, where life is eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. All different kinds of sacrifice are performed just to satisfy Lord Narayana with a view to reach him. And the best sacrifice, recommended in this age of Kali, is Sankirtan Yajna, the mainstay of the devotional service of a Narayana Para devotee. So yeah, as we were talking about, all these things, advancements, are useless if they're not God conscious. And I was kind of getting at the issue, kind of this thing that's going on right now in modern culture, Western culture, is in many ways we live a very comfortable life, and it's just levels and levels and levels beyond even how people lived 100 years ago. I mean, it's like unimaginable, right? How people even lived in the 1920s. Actually, even the United States, before the 1930s, about 20 to 30% of the US population did not have indoor plumbing and electricity in the United States. It was FDR and the New Deal and stuff, because a lot of people were rural. So now we take for granted, everyone just goes to the supermarket. I mean, in the United States especially, everyone has all these things. So there's been leaps and bounds and all this material advancement. But what Western philosophy has been struggling with, and I think you see that in things like the opioid crisis, because in one sense, with these people who are drug addicts, they have a certain thought process that kind of makes sense. I mean, if life is finished, you know what I mean? If it's like when you die, it's all over, right? If it's all done, I mean, why not just go out with a bang, You know what I mean? They have a certain logic to what's going on, and we see a lot of, so this is the thing that the modern scientists and stuff, with all the wonderful gifts and things that they've given, you miss out on that. And what the Krishna consciousness movement, what spirituality is saying is, it's more than just, and some of them even some of them will say, that's very good. You go to the temple and you worship God. They'll even sometimes say, well, that's good if that's what you need, because life is tough. We all just die and it kind of doesn't mean anything. And this is what I was getting at with what Nietzsche, so this is what Nietzsche was trying to do. He was saying, oh my God, God is dead for these people. What do we do now, So he was coming up, he's an existentialist. He's one of the big existentialist thinkers. So he was saying it's all finished. We're all going to die. So what you have to do, just have a passion for life, Just have a passion and don't be so afraid. Don't worry what others think. Do something creative. Go to space, right? What could be better? He didn't specifically say go to space, but we're sitting here why? I don't get it. Why did Sunita Williams go to, we're confused, right? It doesn't make sense to us. So difficult, so dangerous, so many problems, right? It doesn't make sense. We can just read, if we're so curious, we can read the Bhagavatam or whatever. But what's going on? But you got to understand I'm not going to say specifically for Sunita Williams because I can't read her mind, but definitely for a lot of people, when it's over, finished, done, it's all over, right? So it's like, I got to do something like massive, I'm ready to die for that. And this is what Nietzsche existential, this is what a lot of modern especially postmodern philosophy is all about, is, you just give your meaning to life, give your meaning and find some meaning in that way. And they will even say, I'll get to you in a second, thank you. They'll even say, yeah, if your meaning is to be a religious person, okay, no problem, you do that, you do your thing. And there's actually a lot of religions that are like that out there, that cater to that. They are basically saying, well, you come, worship, we sing our songs, we read our books, but but Prabhupada is having a deeper realization, obviously, that there is a real higher reality. And even we can see, if you look, even some of the scientists are realizing, there's Ian Stevenson. You're not, yeah. Oh, I did the thing at your past life. Because Ian Stevenson, he was a head of department in University of Virginia, psychiatry. Your wife is a psychiatrist too, right? He was dovetailing for spiritual. He was showing that these children, small children, are remembering the past lives. You know what I mean? That there's and Prabhupada makes a good point here. He says, even if you go to the highest planet, even there, the duration of life ends. So even there, it's like it becomes pointless. You might enjoy for billions and trillions of years, but if it's finished, you know what I mean? What did you really gain, right? So we are trying to get to that eternal state, which is the only thing, because until we get to that eternal state, some part of our heart, there will be sadness. Some part of our heart will be like, this is all. If we're experiencing great times, it'll be, if we're experiencing even something very good, we know it's going to end, And, all these poets, and they write beautiful poems and literature, and like, oh, it's okay. See the beauty in that. That's what they'll say. See how beautiful that is, But it's like, come on, man. Let's be honest. How beautiful? That's not beautiful. So the last thing I'll say is to come and really just come and do these things, chant 16, chant your japa, follow the rules, and see, is Krishna real? Is this really is this a real thing? I do this, and how is my life changing? What are the signs? This is not just some cultural thing I'm doing. There's a way to just cope with life, right? Really be, and be honest. That's the key. Be honest. Don't cheat. Don't cheat yourself. Don't trick yourself. It's all, and don't feel bad if it's happening, but just that's a natural human way. Even small babies, they've shown they do a little cheating. You have a baby. Even we all do, when the mother, they have hidden cameras. When the mother goes, the baby's okay. And then they'll start crying. We from a young age manipulate and we cheat. But being a devotee, right? Bhagavatam Shashvatam Pati, right? Krishna is the protector of the honest devotee, right? So be honest and see Krishna's reality. So Prabhu has a point.
Yeah, I had a question about what you were mentioning, but really it's useless. If the purpose of life is to attain Krishna, and in the Western world, that's not the purpose of life for Western. Be merry, happy, and party on. And I don't know if there's any more Western place on earth than India now. So we can safely say that Western thought is all around the globe.
Yeah, right.
And if that's not the point of life, I think Krishna has forsaken, except maybe for a society like Prabhupada started, that life to Krishna means nothing. So, you can go ahead and do your thing, and you will end up where you're doing your thing too, whether it be the depths of the earth or in Dhruva Loka. But if you're not following the purpose of life, then you're not going to accomplish anything. Or you're not going to have a place to accomplish it in.
Thank you for sharing. So Prabhu was saying how this Western point of view, modern point of view, it's even in India, it's kind of spread all around the world, and yeah, there's really ultimately no meaning, no point, and even in the future destination, it will be a meaningless. You'll wind up in a meaningless place, other than spiritual societies like ISKCON, where we can realize our spiritual. Am I right? That would be.
The devotee Prabhupada said, when the next war comes and they have nuclear weapons, everything's going to be over.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, whether it's when it is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and also, there may be nuclear war, and even if whether there's nuclear war or not, I mean, we're all going to die basically. So it's all finished anyways. So regardless of that, and even they go to space. Sometimes they're thinking the Earth's going to be polluted, so we need to go to space to get new. But even scientifically, we know, even the mundane scientists know that there'll be a red dwarf and final annihilation of. Even then, no matter where you go, you can't run away from it. So thank you. So we are at time now. Thank you very much for listening. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai.